Want to welcome you guys back to Scaling Multifamily Brands Live. We're going to go ahead and get started here. The topic that we're approaching here today is the credibility and trust roadmap for faster growth and all the things that we need for the business outcomes, right? So who knows us and what they know about us matters more to the deal that you're working on, or maybe even the product. And what we mean by that is there's a lot of effort going into, pursuing capital, pursuing new clients, pursuing sales, and all those things. And so we're going to key into this roadmap of if we had credibility and trust, all those things are easier. So before we dive into this, I want to welcome everybody. I see Sherry. Hello. I can't see everybody on one screen, but I know I can see you guys all in the comments there. Brian, hello. Welcome back. Austin, good to see you. Terrence, good to see you. We've got Jim here. Just make sure you turn on your cameras. I know we got a lot of people in here without cameras on. That's fine. But we do a lot of broadcast events, but this is really designed to be really a meeting. We'll go over the things that we're working on at the top of the show, but it's not a broadcast, right? It's supposed to be a meeting so you can ask your questions. Now, at the bottom of the Zoom, hey, Marcia, see you there. At the bottom of the Zoom, you can see the reactions. You can click raise your hand, and I think you guys know how to use Zoom, as we've talked about before. You can ask a question live. Jim Miller, he's our co-host. He'll be here. He's here to help with questions. He's part of our team, so he's dedicated to your success as well. So I'm going to go through a few thoughts that I have here around this roadmap of credibility and trust, and then we'll go right into the Q&A. If you've got those questions, bring them forward, and just want to appreciate you guys for showing up today. It's been a re-entry moment for us coming out of the holidays, and I'm excited for 2022. So if you're just joining for the first time, I do see some familiar faces, but if you're just joining for the first time, I'm Patrick Antrim. I'm the founder and CEO of Multifamily Leadership. I'm also a multifamily advisor and business growth strategist. I work with some of the most admired companies in multifamilies. It's been exciting to spend time with those brands and how they interact with the marketplace. So what we do at Multifamily Leadership is we produce high-level events in multifamily. We have a podcast network. We have an innovation podcast, investment podcasts, women's podcasts, and then, of course, the Scaling Multifamily Brands podcast. And we also stream content around innovation, technology, leadership, and investments. And what we learned with COVID is those are the things that are essential. They're not going to be disrupted. There's always going to be those things in place. And so we just want our content to be essential to people, that when we produce something, life gets better or a problem goes away, right? And they're able to achieve their bigger and better futures. That's the intent of all that we do in the way that we interact. Now, our goal with all that we're doing here to help multifamily companies, what we're trying to do is give them a competitive advantage. And that allows them to attract the best capital, premier capital, grow their business, and ultimately become a brand everyone trusts. And that takes time. I know you can appreciate that. So think of us as sort of like that accelerator to trust. We go beyond PR, where our goal is to help you get seen, and all of those efforts, and Jim's leading up some of those challenges over there with our team, that's at mclients.com. You can learn all about what we're doing to help brands become the brand everyone trusts. And what we do differently is it's not about really the resident and all of those things. That's what you guys do well, right? You innovate and you figure that stuff out. But our goal is to help the business, the firm, really an inside look at that firm so others know how amazing it is and what you've built and the people that are within it. And that's going to solve the talent problem. That's going to solve the capital, raising capital, trust, lenders, getting offers approved, all those things. So all of that is very important, right? When we're trying to raise capital, when we're trying to build that team, when we're trying to negotiate with lenders, and we're trying to get our offers accepted, right? And sellers are checking into those things. And if we have that credibility and trust in place, um, life gets a little easier, a little less stressful, things like that. So today we're going to talk about that, the credibility and trust roadmap. It is for faster growth, and it's all about, who knows you, right? And what they know about you. Can't just have knowledge of you. They need to know, how you think, how you see the world, how you see the industry, how you see opportunities. And that matters more than the deal you have in many cases, or maybe even your product. So let me ask you guys this a question. You don't have to answer right now. We'll get to this in the Q&A, but would you agree that if you had an investor meeting or this ideal client meeting and they knew you, they had awareness of you, they understood, how you think, how you're different, all that stuff, and they found you credible and trusted, right? Would you have a better chance of converting them when you got into that meeting or in that demo or in that pitch, right? That's what we're trying to do here together, is help you with those strategies. We've been doing this with our strategic business growth clients. It's how we move people through the roadmap, and I'm giving you the roadmap today. It's our credibility and trust roadmap. It's worked for so many great things across the industry. Now, this is the main thing when I say that if people focus on it, it would improve all aspects of the business. Now, a lot of times people are coming here, they want to raise capital. I see all the notes, I see all the challenges. Raise capital, find talent, find deals, get my product into the hands of people that are running properties. I see the challenges, but when we do all this stuff with credibility and trust, then of course you're going to sell more. Of course you're going to raise more capital and get more deals done, but it also is going to improve all aspects of the business, which means talent, retaining talent. People want to work on winning teams, all of that stuff. And sometimes this stuff leads to being, called on CNBC to ask a comment on an industry trend, is because you're doing these things to establish that credibility and trust. And, you think about who are all these customers. You have employees as customers, vendors, brokers, the best brokers, even all the way down to the residents that ultimately move into these properties. So that's what we're talking about here, is trust and credibility. And, it's, I guess, one of the things that we look at when I see all the submissions and the challenges that we're dealing with. We may feel that we don't have a lot of control over when someone says yes to the capital raise that we're doing, right? But with this, we do have control of this, complete control over our trust and credibility in the marketplace. Raising capital, getting new clients, finding the best talent, it often can feel like it's super hard to do. We as industry and even the way that we go about solving these challenges, we've been trained to look for the painkiller, right? Well, that's the part of the challenge. Is instead what we're talking about here is really the vitamins, right? Everybody wants a quick fix, but if you get this stuff right, you can definitely have control of the outcomes and start solving some of these problems. And, what we think about also is the approach that we're taking now with that painkiller is that it's costing us 10 times what it costs if we just focused on building that credibility and trust, right? We're raising capital. Again, we're trying to find talent. We're scaling our operations. We're scaling our business. And we want that to become more probable, right? Well, this credibility and trust is the roadmap for that faster growth. So I'm going to start going through that. Most people, I'll tell you before I give you the roadmap, is most people go straight to one element in this roadmap, and that's the conversion stage. You guys know what that is. That's the pitch. It's the call. It's the meeting you want. It's the meetup, all that stuff. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? It's definitely an important step, and you can't convert without a conversion meeting or a client meeting and all those things. I get that. But what we're doing here is we're going to show you why that's not the first step. So I'm going to show you here. Well, I guess I'm going to tell you here. I'm not going to show you. There's another day for that, but how we do it. And there are essentially 5 stages in this roadmap. And what we start with is what we call the signal. Now, I can see some of you guys are in your offices, some are out on the beach. I can see Scott's having a good, I know I've seen that beach before. But anyway, you guys are in many different places. Some are you listening while you're out doing other things because you can't be here live. But I will tell you that Taylor Swift, Dave Ramsey, Howard Stern, I mean, you name your favorite artist or whoever it is, they're all in that room that you're in right now. And you might be thinking, what are you talking about? You're crazy. Where are you going with this? But literally, they're in that room with you. They have songs playing right now on Spotify. Taylor Swift's probably playing right now on Spotify somewhere or some radio station. Dave Ramsey's radio show may be on Sirius right now, or Howard Stern, or all these artists, Jim Cramer, everybody's. The radio goes through the rooms, right? What's different, though, is that we're just not tuned in to that channel right now. But if you were, you would hear their voices, right? And what we're talking about here is signal instead of noise. There's a lot of noise in the industry right now. We use messaging and copywriting to get people to tune in to our clients, right? Like that's what it's about. It's about when you're on that phone. Remember we talked the last show about TV in your pocket. When they stop and they're like, wait a minute, you're getting somebody to tune in to your deal, your product, your business, all that stuff has to have the right copy, the right words, right? Emotional, logical, and the right messages. That's the art. Okay, that's the art that we do in getting that signal. And it's interesting, the analogy of like having, those airwaves are passing through us right now. And right now there are people, your messages, your emails, your posts, all the things that you're trying to do, the calls you're trying to make to get clients, all the investors, whatever that may be, is also just passing by if you don't get the messaging and the signal right. So let me pause here for just a minute and talk. A lot of times in first principle thinking, it's like testing your assumptions about how to get to the end goal is, in first principle thinking, we look at what we normally do, and if you start when you identify with a problem, when you're presented with a problem, we first go like we act. And right now, it's like a problem that's being presented is we need investors. We're going to reach out. We're going to post. We're going to do these things. We're going to go to these events. Or we need clients. We're going to do this. We're going to send emails, do all this stuff. We act before we think. And first principles is something I think you guys could really benefit from researching anywhere. Just Google it. First principles thinking is you stop to think before you act, and you stop to think about like, why are we doing it this way? Right? And the reason why that will stop you from just creating noise. And right now, I'm kind of asking you to stop and think about this roadmap. And you may think like, wait a minute, I've been going straight to the conversion, straight to the call, and I'm missing these other 4 steps. And that's what we're talking about here is the thinking process. A lot of times people don't spend enough time thinking about what to do. They just go right to action, and it creates more noise. And then they wonder why nobody is listening. They don't have the right messages. So the first step that we call the signal is the first step in the roadmap. It's getting the right messages. It's getting those messages seen everywhere. And then it's getting those messages heard, right? And they're going to land. In previous shows, we talked about how to get it, make it all about them, all about what they want, all about how, they get it and who you're helping, all those things. That's about getting it heard. And so let's move on to the next step in this roadmap, and that is what we call the marketplace. Now, in this phase, what we're talking about, if we're trying to reach everyone, and by the way, let me rephrase that. If you're marketing to everyone, you're marketing to no one, right? We know that. Like, we have to differentiate, but you understand the idea. The idea is we need to go as far and wide as we can with our messages. And if we know that 95% of the people that are engaging with our world, our business, have one of these, a mobile phone and a TV and a radio in their pocket, then we need to discuss, ways to reach them where they are. That's the focus. Everything that you do ultimately ends up back at an email or a mobile phone or something. That's how people are interacting with the world. That's how you guys got here. At some point, you got an email and you clicked on it, had the right message, all that stuff, and you're here. And so the goal is to get that for you. For example, when I say the marketplace as being this key second phase in the roadmap, our industry, and this is data that is just published across the industry, around 17 million people make up the jobs that come together to support all that happens in multifamily. And this doesn't factor in like wealth managers and investors and these things, but let's just call that the market, right? These are the people that work and make the industry go around, and probably the people that you need to reach. And, our largest event pre-COVID, let's call it 11,000 people. And you figure a third of those, and I'm probably exaggerating, but a third of those are probably actual potential customers. But we spend so much time and energy around these events because, again, we just go like, we got to go to market, so we don't stop to think, we just do. Remember the first principles? We don't stop to think, like, are there other ways to reach people, right? There actually is. We're just not doing the math correctly. So what we need to do is we need to focus on the marketplace, and this is where the buyers are. If you're selling an innovative technology, and if the investors that you're trying to reach, that's where they are. You guys already know, the legal structure, what to say, how to structure your funds, all of that stuff. This is not like we're talking about raising capital. We're talking about building credibility and trust. We're not talking about the how in the compliance and all those things, because this stuff has to come before all of that, right? Because that's the conversion meeting when you're actually having the conversation. So another way that we approach the marketplace, which is that second step in the roadmap, is understanding that, buyers buy differently today. They're doing their own research. Before, we used to need a salesperson to show us something or tell us about something. And we're just sort of trained to look at reviews and do our own research and check up on things that are publicly available. You don't necessarily need a sales pitch to see how things work or even how things go from here on out. Now, salespeople today and business development people, the ones that are getting the best results, are helping buyers that have said that they're interested become customers instead of selling. So the persuasion conversation is out the door. All that like closing techniques and sales and checking in with them and all that manipulation and like all that stuff, energy, is because we're not doing the credibility and trust stuff right. And the buyers are different today. They're just not appreciating that. I bet you guys are feeling the same way. I mean, you buy things too. How do you like to buy? Do you feel like you need to go through, here's the background of our company and all that? Like, that should be very easily done and making it easy for the customer to learn about you, right? So that marketplace, this is people are moving down that I guess that journey to get to that conversation, or the conversations with you, either if it's in person or on Zoom or whatever that is. But we have to understand that people are buying differently. Okay, so that moves us into our third phase, what we call educate. And in this phase, it's all about helping them make a decision. That's for us the way we see sales. And technically, the more complex the thing that you have, the more time it takes to transfer the knowledge. So what we're doing in the education phase or the educate phase is we're transferring the knowledge that they would need to make a decision to buy your thing or invest in your product or do the thing you want to do. And we're using content to deal with the things that they need to know in order to become a customer or part of your organization. Now, if you think about it, this is all a salesperson does, really. They're building trust. They're establishing credibility. And, you know, they're doing things to get them to that yes. And maybe they're meeting them at events. Maybe they're going to dinners, all that stuff. Usually that's coffee, office visits, you know, demo meetings, all these things. It's 5 or 6, 7 touches. But you know what's interesting about that is that it's not scalable because you have to do it over and over and over. And you're trying to build credibility in that one conversion phase, that first phase that people jump to, and you're rushing the process. And that's part of why if the credibility and trust were there, you'd have better chances of converting. So we're basically, again, trying to build the credibility and trust at scale because, you know, when you do those things, it helps every salesperson. Even if you have sales turnover or turnover in your business at any level, really, this content that you create to build trust and credibility if you have 30 salespeople, it's going to support every one of the salesperson instead of just having one salesperson be really good at it in a 30-minute meeting. And we know that doesn't work very well. So you have to have multiple meetings and then chase down more meetings. And then it's like, well, then you start over in many cases because you're meeting with different people, right? So, you know, there's brands that you know right now that have put in the work and you trust them and you recognize them in the world we live. You know, in the automotive industry, I think it's for safety, you can know like who's the brand that supports safety, right? Like I bet you guys, most of you would know that answer. Who's the brand for performance? Who's the brand for this? You know, they've built that credibility over time, right? Now, we also want to make it easy for people to get in touch with us, right? And that's what's going to lead us to my next phase, which is credibility. And this is where we're building conviction that you or your company or your product is the brand for them. You've already educated them, right? You're starting to see yourself, or they're starting to see you, I guess, as an expert, a trusted advisor, and they've learned something from you, right? You're coming out of the education phase, so they've learned something from you. It's reciprocity too. That just naturally plays out because you've demonstrated that you can actually help them. You know, that may look like if you're evaluating a technology, it may be instead of saying, here's what it is and here's what it does and here's who we are and here's what we have, buy it. It may be like, you're an investor, you're a CEO of a management company. Here's what you need to be thinking about this product when you're bringing it into your organization. Are you ready for it? You know, do you have the right property for it? You know, give them the due diligence. In a lot of cases, people don't have this information. So if you're the one going, oh, that's interesting, that's a good way to think about it, you're building that trust and reciprocity and you're perceived as the expert. And as you go down the sales process, when you do a presentation, that type of content, thought leadership content, because it's very different from content marketing, thought leadership content would support those periods of time as they're, you know, really thinking about a yes decision with you. So now that we've moved from signal, which is the first part of it, right? Getting the right messages, right? The right copy, the right messaging, and we're moving into the marketplace. And now that you've educated them, and now that there's a little bit of credibility there, and they're trusting you, you're sort of that expert, you're that trusted advisor because you really understand these things. And that moves us now into the final phase, which is the conversion. That's where everybody starts right now. Everybody, I bet, on this call has been in the conversion phase. I would suspect many people might not have gone through the other phases as quickly or in those orders, right? But everybody rushes right to the conversion phase. That's where they go first. They skip all those other phases and they go to the meeting. And again, that's why you're going to continue to struggle, because this other stuff is hard work. It does take time, but I guarantee you that's the exciting part and the differentiating part on how you get the signal today, because no one else is going to want to do that. They're going to do what they're not going to think from first principle. They're going to think from, what do we normally do? Well, we buy some leads, we get some salespeople, we go chase down leads. Let's try and go to an event. Let's send some emails. Let's make some content online, right? But you're going to be different. You're going to follow this trust and credibility roadmap. I guarantee you it works. It's not a mystery. It's not a belief. It literally works. And it works best for people that think about the type of client they want to spend time with, and they think about how they can help them, and they think about what those clients need. They create content and value to make life better for the people that they want to work with. Okay. So, trying all those other things is it's complicated, because you're really putting that whole roadmap in that 30-minute meeting. And I've said earlier that when you try and build credibility and trust and educate and build value and show that you're the brand for you, all that stuff in that 30 minutes, guess what's also at a disadvantage? You're in a sort of a sales context. You're pitching them. They're kind of like, tell me why I should work with you. It's very different. So you're at a disadvantage there too. So that's why you want to move all that credibility, trust, education outside of that meeting and build that trust and credibility, so that when they finally say, you know what, this person thinks like us, they take care of the real estate the way we do, they're going into places we want to go, let's reach out to them. And now that conversation is very different. They've passed through all that stuff, right? By the way, in the conversion phase, when you're trusted and you have a bit more this credibility and this trusted advisor approach, sales is easier. And again, like I said, when you're seen as that expert, sales is easy or simpler, one or the other. I can't remember how it goes, but you get to qualify the customer in this phase instead of convince. Now, let me talk about what our goals are in this conversion phase. It's like, well, what do you do once they're there? And really, for us, it's really just to thoroughly understand their current situation, which, by the way, everybody wakes up with a current situation, and then thoroughly understanding where they want to go, what are the outcomes, business outcomes that they want to create, and what's that sort of bigger and better future look like to them, right? You're just basically looking at, here we are and here's where we want to go. It's pretty basic in consultative sales. Then you're just determining if your brand can actually help them. And then it's just, you're the bridge to that. And that's essentially the credibility and trust roadmap on an overview. I know that there's probably a lot of questions that you may have about them. You guys, I have some of those here with me. I will turn it over to Jim and allow you guys to, I'd love to hear from you, based off of everything that I've shared, going through that roadmap, how that impacts your world. Do you have any thoughts around it, questions around it, or anything you want to share? Would love to hear from the group.
All right, Patrick, that was awesome. I have I'd love to invite you to go down, as Patrick mentioned, to the reactions at the lower side of your screen. If you have a question, go ahead and raise your hand, and I can ask you to unmute, and you can come on live with the group and ask your questions or make your comment. Love to have you do that. And in the meantime, I have a couple of questions already set up, Patrick, that I can ask to get the ball rolling. Oh, I've got one person with their hand raised. Let's go there. Let's see.
Oh, David?
Yeah, is that David? So let's see. Where is David?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go for it, David.
How's everyone doing? I'm calling from up here in New Jersey, where the weather is different every 10 minutes. So either hot or cold, too hot or too cold, but all is good.
David, real quick, tell us where where that is. Is it, and then what you? I've seen an apartment building behind you, so I'm imagining you're owner, operator, investor.
Architect.
Architect, that's right. Okay.
Do multifamily. So this one is actually hopefully shovel in the ground soon when they're in for permits for foundations. So this one is 30 unit multifamily, a couple retail in the front. Only because the town wanted it. Otherwise, we wouldn't have done that. So anyway, this was great, Patrick. Very, very good and very succinct. I like that you broke it up into three items at first, and I see. So getting it heard, and marketplace, and educating. Right, they're definitely three different things, but. And I see, for me at least, LinkedIn has been my tool for doing all three of those. Getting it heard, which is really reaching out to developers and owners of properties that would be doing multifamily. We pretty have a niche of smaller, maybe 12 unit buildings, probably the smallest we've done, up to like maybe I think 45, 50 has been about the range. We don't do the huge ones. We could, but it hasn't been our it's not the easy sell, because they, at least around here, usually go to the bigger firms for that. So I will use LinkedIn, find property owners about the size of projects that we excel in and are known for. And then what you call marketplace, just kind of reach out. No selling, just introducing. If they want to connect, great. If they don't, fine, right? And then if they do connect, then staying in touch. So that would be the marketplace. Make sure they're the right people. Comment on their projects. I never sell, and if I can help, so that would be three. Educating. If I can help, I help. Again, never sell. I don't, and I think that's been what I have found to be the best. I think, at least for me, when someone introduces them to me and starts selling right away, forget it. I don't even want to, if I don't go to them, don't sell me, right? And I advise that all the time, because why? Even, I mean, it's similarly when I'm out at networking things, which I forget when the last time what that was, face to face, right? But if someone didn't, if they ask me for my card, I give it to them. If they don't ask me for a card, I don't give it to them. So it's going to go in the garbage anyway, probably. If they ask, I'm happy to give it to them. For me, the important thing is getting their card, right? Because then I'm in control. I'm going to reach out to them. And if they don't ask me, I see people still running around the room. They'll send out 50 cards and leave. And do they really think that's going to get them business? It seems crazy to me. Maybe if they're very lucky. someone at that exact moment needs the exact product that they have. Anyway, I didn't mean to talk this long, but I thought
No,
I'd share.
I appreciate the
I can't
comments,
believe
David.
Much longer than I can't believe I've been doing it for 40 years already. It's crazy. But figured I'd share that. But I like the 3 points you make. And I figured I'd share that I kind of use LinkedIn and social media for those three. Then the credibility's there. That gives you the credibility. And then if you get a chance to bring something to the table and have your meeting to get the job, you're in. They already know all the trust is there. So thank you. I'll thanks for this.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you, David, for your comments. And you mentioned something in there around the hustle of passing on the cards and running around the room and pushing into the marketplace, all that stuff. And it's interesting, like people do things because they get some result out of them, I would suspect, right? But this first principles thinking I asked you to think about earlier was, instead of thinking like right to action, is stop to think about it, because it's not always like you're always going to have this illusion of success, because there is some success. You can literally you can go back to print and do direct mail and you will get success. And then, but it's not always that other things don't work better. And I think that's what I would love to leave you with, is like, whatever you're doing now, also think about other things that could work at more efficient, speeds, or a more enjoyable process, whatever that may be. Thank you, David. What else you got, Jim? Anything else on the radar there?
Yeah, Patrick, we have Kim Cross. Kim, welcome.
Oh, hey,
What's your
Kim.
question?
How are y'all? Good to
Hi.
meet y'all.
Good to see you, Kim.
Good to see you too. I can't wait to see you in person at your events this year.
Yes.
So that is when I will be at in person. So,
Yes.
So the KSC Group, we are property management software consultants. Just to kind of let everybody know what we do. And when I started the company 9 years ago, I really just had the intention of it being me, myself, and I, and used my internal network, from places I'd worked and stuff like that. I agree with you, Patrick, and your model works for my company, right? We very rarely, we attend conferences to get some face time with our clients, prospective clients, things like that, just because FaceTime and meeting people, we tend to be sort of under the radar. So a lot of people go, we didn't even know you existed, because we have help desk training, implementation of all the different product centers, or all the different software platforms. And so going through that, it makes me want to Google exactly what you were talking about with the 5 stages and things like that, because I missed a couple of notes, but it just kind of validated how we end up doing business. I haven't had to advertise or do anything. Most of it is because we're trusted advisors. Sales reps are referring people to us, vendors are coming to us, and they've had a good experience. And so therefore they refer other people, and the business has grown, the employees have grown. And so the model that we do is not to sell, but more the relationship building, right? Listening to why they're coming to us, seeing if there's a way for us to help, giving them a variety of we publish our service offerings. And if any of that, strikes a chord with them, then we just continue to have conversations and continue to build that relationship. So I have found, I've been in this industry since 1990. And what I find is that people buy things from people who they like, know, and trust, right? When you go into something, it's the relationship that you took time to build. It's not about the fact that you came at them. Like I use LinkedIn quite a bit. So I agree with David. A lot of people reach out through LinkedIn. We try and do some social media things to make us known. We're looking at how to get our branding and what we do more publicly known, right? And so we are going to start looking at booths at the bigger trade shows, but more instead because we're consulting, the booth can't be like a traditional supplier type booth, right? It's really just, hey, here's kind of what we do, or meeting people, what are they looking for? So I think I really, learned a lot, and it validated, because what we try to do, there's a book that I'm reading, and it's called the Building a Story Brand by
Donald Miller.
Donald Miller. And it's really talking about your website and everything, but it's really making me rethink my website design. And the whole, principle of it is, it's not you telling your customer how amazing you are. It's your website should show how you can be a guide and a help to them. Like they're the one with the problem, and you're going in to be the guide, and they're the hero, kind of a deal.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what we try to uncover, is challenges and things like that. And just, and it's amazing how we've been able to build these relationships, because once they try a little bit of our service, they end up, growing more. And we have clients that we've had since we started in 2013. So I just validate everything. I love I love the virtual workshops that you're doing. And I think it's also proof in the concept of what you're trying to promote. And that is, and so when I come to these, I look at it and go, how can I replicate this same type to build my brand or get information out there? Like, I'm watching you and then going, oh, these are some great ideas. How do I convert that into my form of business? So it's nice to meet everybody. Happy New Year. Welcome to 2022. And I look forward to seeing people more on these workshops, and I look forward to seeing you in person in Scottsdale.
Yes, thank you, Kim. Wonderful comments there. I appreciate all those. I've got a couple of follow-ups, because you said some things that I think that would be very useful to others. Story Brand, yeah, great book. Donald Miller, I think you mentioned. And just as a little homework assignment is, go to any management company or investment company. And what Kim is talking about there is, when you go to those websites, it's like, here's our properties, here's what we have, here's who we have, here's what we do, here's how much we've bought, all that stuff. And it's nothing about the investor. And I don't want to be too general there, because there's a lot of great websites out there, right? But look at the trend. And what we're talking about here is, when you're doing that signal phase in the messaging, that copy, what Kim's doing is research on that story structure, because she's found success with it personally or with her sales team. But now, if you can think about putting that where it's at scale instead of in every meeting. So you found, like, you've got a lot of validation around that. Your business has grown. You've created tremendous value for people. They're referring you to more customers, and you're doing that in that sales meeting and through those touch points. So now it's like, now you own a business, and you're like, well, how do we, go faster without the complexity? How do we not depend on trade shows and those things? It's not that you don't need to go or you can't go. If you can go, go. But to not depend on them, and be able to do all of that magic at scale through content. And so I think that's the lever there, is that leverage. And leverage has meant a lot of things for many people over the years. In going back to, like, the industrial, the assembly line, was the people were leverage. It was all about, how many people do you have in a company? Leverage. Banking systems, right, came along. It was, money became leverage. And then technology became leverage, right? And so right now, if you leverage technology and your strategy, and then bring in audience, like media, that's the new leverage, is media. TV's in the pocket. That's your leverage right now. You leverage over not depending on waiting for an event to happen to go to market and tell the story and create value for people. Not needing to hire more people, but create content that gives your sales teams their leverage. right? So all that content, if you can replicate that. So thank you so much, Kim, for your comments. Appreciate all that. All right, Jim, what do we got here?
All right, Patrick, we've got, I don't see anybody else raising their hand right now, so I'm gonna go ahead and ask a question from the pre-list that we put together. And this one is, how do I find more acceptable deals?
How do you find more, what was it, acceptable?
Acceptable deals.
I'm assuming this was submitted today. I'm assuming acceptable meaning that I probably need some more clarification on the question, but deals that actually can be accepted by the sellers, right? And I think that's just goes back to a whole nother thing is when you're submitting that offer. I know we talked about this in our previous show. I think it was the last show we did, which is when somebody's getting that offer, the LOI, and they're looking at who's the buyer. And if there's no trust and credibility there, and there's no strength shown, track record, all those things, then it's not that it's necessary. I know there's a lot of people doing deals, in stealth mode, but it does help when people are looking at, timelines that they need to meet, and having certainty over closing, things like that. So again, think of like you're buying something, but you're really wanting them to buy into you. And when they're buying into you, it's having that trust and credibility, knowing like this is a strong organization. They've got a strong group. They've got a great due diligence team. They've got a great track record. They're not retrading on deal, things like that. So I think it goes back into do all this other work around this other stuff to get into the hearts and minds of what you think a seller would want to know about their buyer, and make sure that when they're looking into who you are, that can be easily discovered.
Okay, awesome. Let's see. I have one here where they're asking, they say, I do 8 to 10 events a year. And I'd like to know what needs to be done before an event to make it a great event for my company.
Yeah, that's actually a great question, because there are people investing a lot of money to go out and find buyers, right? Or people that want to buy products, I guess. And so it goes back to if you focus on while you're in the room with the people that you've invested in being in the room with, you want to make sure that in a perfect world, they know you. They've seen you on social media. They've seen an article. They've commented on something you've created. They've seen, a report you've made or something like that. And so by the time that they're in the room with you, they know a little bit more about you. It goes back to this same system. That conversion piece would be, maybe think of that as the event. And so going back to the roadmap, start with the signal, getting out there way before you go to the event. I'm attending this event. Here's why. Here's what I'm looking to do when I'm there. Here's what I'm thinking about my business, and this topic, meant a lot to me. So I'm flying and I'm going to this for this reason. And you're going to generate ideas and conversations and messages and value even before you even get there. So Dean Jackson has a before, during, and an after. So before the event, you're doing all these things, building the trust, the credibility, and awareness. And then during the event, there's a whole nother experience where it's like, think of what Kim said about the story brand. It's make it all about them, all about what they want, all about how they get it. So instead of saying, here's who I am at the event, here's what I do, here's what I can do for you, it's like, what are you working on? What are you excited about? What are some things that's, frustrating, to you, and maybe be that connector either before, during, and after, and you're going to get the maximum value. Now, it seems like, man, that's a lot of work. And there are people that are paid to do that work, right? And that's their job. And you can also think about, instead of figuring out the how, is figuring out the who that knows the how. That's Dan Sullivan, right? Like find the who that knows the how, if that is not in your DNA. But I will tell you, go back and test your assumptions is, listen, like this is the world we're living in, and this is how you create value today. And it's actually an opportunity. So think about it before, during, and after, and the same roadmap applies. You're creating that reciprocity of connecting people, creating value, and people. We love ourselves, right? We talk about things we want to do, right? What are you working on? Oh, well, they'll tell you, right? And so that's the energy I think I would be putting in place. Now, what you're going to be up against is everybody else that's going to be that, handing out stuff and look at our booth and all that, come to the cocktail party and do it alone with us. And the reality is they have to rush that process because they're not doing any of the other stuff. And so you come in with this quiet confidence, knowing like, I don't need this I got clients constantly coming to me. There's an abundance. And so then you're showing up for them and it looks very different from everyone else. And that's really that's what a business should be. Like you're different and, they want to work with people that, light them up.
All right, great. What stories and content are right under my nose that I'm not seeing and that could help me?
Ooh, that's good. So the stories could be transformation ones that reveal the values that your organization or you as a leader have, and how you've moved somebody from here to there. So people would identify with those stories like, oh, that's like me. I need that. That's my, I need a product like that, or I need a solution like that. And investments, it could be as simple as, you're trying to find more deals, you're trying to find more capital, and maybe you have a certain structure of you need equity, you need some debt, and you also need some rehab capital. And so instead of going after that, why don't you start telling the story of the last project you completed, how, what'd you learn, what were the surprises, how you dealt with those surprises. And what you're doing is you're revealing the strength of your team in that process. Originally we went into this thing, we thought it was going to be 4,000 a unit, turned out to be 5,000 unit. And here's what ended up happening. Here's how my team dealt with it. But here's the victory that we created by doing it. And so I think documenting what's really happening inside the business, and it's the employee stories. It may not be your story. It could be, here's who we hired, for this objection or objective, and here's what they accomplished. And what you're also doing is you're letting the investors know, like, you've got depth, that you can move through a challenge, right? And that it was a victory, right? And then you're also allowing other people in the industry know that you value employees and you're recognizing them, and other people that could also help you will want to work on teams like that. And so now you've really solving your talent brand as much, right? Which again makes your investment brand even better. So, there's rounds and rounds of ideas, but I think it's, those stories because you're hearing the customers respond to them. What are people leaning into that's great about your organization, right? And tell the great stories, right? And you've got the ability to tell it for free.
Hey,
All right.
John Patrick. Hey, this is Sherman Jett. Hey, I took some advice from your last class that you had. We started shooting videos of our door installations, and we start doing videos of bad doors that look very bad, and the gaps are bad. They're hard to seal with standard door seals that's out there. And we got 5 customers because we start telling the story. Our only reason why we got our customers is because we gave them the product to try. But just telling them, hey, we got a door seal that'll sustainably seal doors for decades, they're like, forget you. But we get customers through referrals because once our past customers use the product, it was the aha moment. Wow, this is very nice door seals that actually will work. So when you mentioned, why don't you just start telling people who you are and start telling stories? So we've been doing that, and we got 5 customers because they watch the videos and go, holy smokes, look at that door. Oh, they sealed it and it looks nice. So thanks for that tip because it really worked. And I'm going to now continue to tell stories about how we seal doors. They can physically look at it and see what it looks like and go, wow, the before, man, look at the after. So that was huge. So thank you.
That's awesome to hear. Thank you for your comments. I appreciate that. And you know, what you've done there is in the signal phase of this roadmap we went through today. It was you had the right message. It was visual message, right? Some people want to listen on the podcast. They want to meet. We're meeting together now. They want to watch like a video, and some people will want to read, right? And some people want to be briefed on something, and some people want to see it in action. So you had the right signal, and you cut through the noise. And what's really interesting about that is what your comments you made were powerful, and I'll tell you why. You said, nobody really wants like, oh, the door and the seal and all those things. Nobody wakes up today. Remember we talked about the current situation. Nobody woke up that day thinking I need some door situations today, or I need a door sealed today. Most people want either their problem to go away or they want some outcome in their world. And so when you showed them that, it sort of makes them pause and go, yes, I need that. But they would never have said it if you said, we have a door sealant and it's facts. So awesome job. Congrats on that. Send me the videos. I'd love to see the videos. All right, Jim.
Fantastic. We have another question. And again, anybody would like to raise their hand, I'd love to hear your comment. But in the meantime, how do I fundraise in such a competitive market?
Yeah. So again, this roadmap is going to allow. So who do you think is your competitor first? Okay. And do you believe they're winning? Do they have the edge? Right. And then secondly, and I mentioned this in another show, is your competition is not who you think it is. Your competition is the attention span of your ideal client. So I guarantee you, whatever fundraising you're doing, the people that you might be losing a deal to probably have more credibility, more trust, more rhythms, more consistency, more visibility, more awareness. And because of that, maybe better team, or who knows what all the elements are, right? There's a lot more to know about that. But the roadmap, start with the signal, get the right messages, right? In the right places, and get things heard. Then move into the marketplace, get it seen everywhere. Everywhere the people that you want to work with spend time. And then when they're in that marketplace, do it in such a way that they don't need to have a meeting with you to learn that you're valuable and useful in the world. And then the education piece, right? Start with education, start talking about like, what does somebody that needs to invest in the things that you're offering really want out of life, right? Are they long-term investors? Are they short-term investors? Are they is it a family office? There's so much to it. And so get into the hearts and minds of what their current situation is, right? and create content to knock those things down. And then again, going back into credibility, now you're one of those brands that are more out there. And by the way, there's never been a better time in the world to compete with the big brands, if that's an issue in the fundraising that you're doing. But also, I think there's something to say about people are sometimes tired of big brands or big organizations or big funds, in that they want the caretaking. They want to know that this person can take care of the real estate, take care of the investor, and take care of the customer. So I think that's really positioning those things in the roadmap. Now, I'll give you some unsolicited advice around that, which is not legal or financial or any of that stuff, which is, and you look at like Warren Buffett and his philosophies that have sort of really successful investor in stocks and all these things. But he understands people and like what they need in certain times of the years and, things like that. I think there was an analogy about he's like chewing gum, it's not going to be disrupted by the internet or something. And so he understands people ultimately give revenue to these businesses. So if you're the investor or the sponsor or investment firm, and all you know is cap rates and IRRs and all the obvious stuff that every other fundraising person puts together, and you're not looking different, and you don't understand the customer, would you finance a car dealership for 25 years right now? Not knowing like self-driving car, all these things that are coming to play. So give that value and be different from everybody else, because everybody else is going to talk about the deal points, the PPM, all that stuff. Be different and really understand that customer. The people that are going to invest in this property that's going to be backed by, that's how revenue is created and it flows in these ways. You need to know that customer. And I don't think a lot of investors, they've relied on management companies and the operators to really know that, but the investors need to know. It's your job to know. It's your job to look forward. So know where things are going. And right now, as investors, I'll tell you, here's a little bit of it could be polarizing. Right now, investors, the game plan is buy properties, raise rent, charge more to the customer, make money, and do that over and over and over. And at some point, regulation enters. The problem is that if we don't start talking about how to protect investor capital, then at some point it's going to be at risk if we just keep trying to get more revenue from the resident, the customer's customer, right? So if you can be that person that can get them to think like, oh, this is different. Like they're thinking about other ways to make money than just rent increases, right? Thinking about those things. If you're selling products into the industry, give that an operating partner the opportunity to create value in other ways than just counting on rent increases. So I think you got to really think differently, because they're seeing the same, it's like they're seeing the same stuff, the same pro formas, the same projections, and they're just emotionally engaged in the momentum around everything's just going so well. That's what I would be doing, is I'd be thinking completely different about the programs, the deals we're talking about. And because of that, the investment's more solid, because you think about Elon Musk and the two wealthiest people in the world, Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos. They wake up every day about, how do I make life easier for people? That's Bezos. Frictionless experience. And they know that in 10 years, people are going to want lower costs of things. So they're thinking about how to get lower cost to their customer. Elon Musk is same way. He's thinking about, how do we get electric vehicles less expensive? There's not an investor I've ever heard pitch us that says, I'm going to make this, you're going to get your returns as the investors, as they should, but we're going to do it this way because we're going to find a way in innovation or operations to get to the investment return without relying on the customer. because of that, we're going to be the most in-demand brand in apartments because it's going to be great value, great price, and we're going to find ways to, for Elon Musk, it was everyone else is like, we can't make it happen. Ford, Chevy, all these can't make it happen. And he's like, well, we got to build the battery ourselves. So we got to think internally, like, what do we need to build? Find a way to build things differently, all those things. And that's going to allow you to, attract the funds from the right people. If you don't go around that approach, and you don't go down the roadmap and you're just going to conversation, then you just get your activities up. Just be high activities and just stay positive, right? Like keep doing it, the hard way, which is try and get in front of the most people as you can and hope that you've got the right deal and the timing's good. You got the capital lined up, the deal lined up. But if that's not the case, you can do the roadmap and then you get to choose. You're choosing the investors versus them choosing you. That was a long answer to. I don't think it's a real simple answer, or it's not as simple. There's not one answer to it. The question, as you guys all know that, but
very wide, very broad question. We have a question from Terrence Marcus. Go ahead, Terrence.
Yes. Hey, thanks, Jim. And again, thanks for inviting me to this. I think this is very refreshing. My question is, I'm having problems getting through my LinkedIn group, and there's just, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the way I went about finding those particular individuals that I've been emailing regarding some deals that come my way, or what. There's no response. And then I get that not in, I forget the exact wording, in mail or something like that. And then I'll get a response, they accepted you, but then when I click on it, it's saying not in mail. I'm like, I don't know if that's a question to ask LinkedIn or maybe, and it's a basic statement or conversation that I'll make with them, a quick greeting, slight elevator pitch regarding the products that I represent for a 35-year-old company, family owned. I thought those are jewels of information to help the trust factor. He's been in business a number of years like that, 35 years, et cetera, and then since it's near income tax time, my statement has been working around, hey, the 1031 tax exchange projects going on. Are you aware, how to save money, on your taxes and converting that into buying more property? And very 0 to none in a response in hundreds of emails.
Yeah. So Terrence, great question. And I'll tell you on the group thing, number one, it's LinkedIn's, in my opinion, we're not investing in groups in LinkedIn. And the reason is it's not, people share things in those, but like Facebook is, and this is all going to probably change, right? Is a better way to have group engagement. And if you really wanted to go to a whole nother level, which I wouldn't recommend it for this group, which would be like Slack and the more, where things are going. But for now, I would get everything that you're posting in that group into your personal profile page and not into, and number one, you maybe a business page, have both. Okay. So I would convert everything that you're doing in the group into a business page, and then also continue to do that on your personal page. Now, I'm not really a LinkedIn expert, but we've achieved a lot of success over there. But I can tell you, the trust and credibility that you're trying to build there, that's good, but it needs to also be on your website because people are searching. Remember we talked about in the marketplace in this roadmap, people are searching for the problems that you solve. And if they're not going to find them in LinkedIn from that, because they're not going to go to LinkedIn to search for the problem. You may get them, through that process to pay attention in the signal phase, but they're going to search on Google for the problem to be solved. And if you're only investing in that content in a LinkedIn group, which we know is um, low engagement, a lot of noise, but not a lot of engagement, then I would be blogging about that, putting that on your website, that content, and then also put that content in your channels for your personal profile and your business LinkedIn profile. That's what I would start with.
Okay.
Appreciate the
And
question.
yes, I'm not using groups, but it's more personal. But now that you mentioned what you did, I'll start using the blogging as well as set up a business page. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
All right, thanks, Terrence.
Thank you.
So we've got, here's another question. I'm looking to get more capital investors into sales conversations that convert.
Yeah, so this kind of goes back to that fundraising question. More capital investors into sales conversations that convert. So, think about these capital investors, and you can often think about the ones you already have converted and lean into what went well in that. What did they enjoy about that? What did they value in your organization around that? And then, sort of amplify that and then get that out there again in places that people can see and discover those things. But really thinking about this goes back into, we just go for the action. We go into the step is think first about who specifically is this capital investor? Where are they located? What kind of capital is it? Is it $25,000? Is it $2 million? Right? What does somebody with $2 million that places capital with somebody else want to know? So give them those things, right? And so you're attracting the conversations versus trying to pursue it. And so instead of saying, how can I get a meeting with you? It's like the stuff you're doing in this roadmap we're talking about is, if I wanted to do it right here, it's like, well, when high net worth investors that have $5 to $10 million of money in motion reach out to me, the reason why they reach out to me is I've built this amazing team behind me, and this team has done this. And when we go into a deal, we look at it like this, and then we do that. And then it's not about getting the return. It's about protecting the return and saying no when others say yes, right? So you want to structure conversations like that where it's not, they're discovering you. And look, Jim Cramer does it every morning on like CNBC. I mean, people are, you have a pocket media company. So like what I just said, if you just talk to yourself, you don't have to publish it. Think of that ideal investor, what they would want in, somebody that's going to take care of the real estate and their investment vehicle, and give them that. And then when you give them that, make it easy for them to contact you. We do that all with like even our software. It's like, make it frictionless, just book a meeting, schedule a time with them. Hey, if that was interesting and you're curious about what renovations are working in today's market, reach out, send me a message. It could be literally, that can all be on LinkedIn. And it doesn't have to be anything tricky. But you'd be surprised.
All right. So I've got another question here. How do I know I'm in the right circles? I'm thinking maybe social circles.
First, read the room, look around, right? I think it's probably the questions that people are asking and having clarity around the way you want to work and the life you want to live and the business you want to become, all that stuff. Good marketing repels as much as it attracts. I think a lot of people are looking to try and get. And for me, I'm really saying like, hey, here's the compatibility report on working with us. Here's who this is for. who this is not for. Like if you want to work with us, and you're not willing to put in the work, or you have a short-term challenge, or you're not helping customers every step of the way, then here's what may work for you. And so kind of being in tune to know, like, the people in your room, are they or the room, the meeting, the venue, whatever you're at, are they aligned with the same things that you want to be aligned with? You could be in a room that makes you feel good. In other words, there's validation. People are telling you you're awesome because you control a paycheck or you control a checkbook. Because that's the illusion right now, is there's people that feel like, they're moving along. And the reality is there's people that make them feel special because, you're funding 150 carpets a month or something, right? And so it may feel like there's progress being made, but you may not be in the, you may be getting, you may think about the consequences of like bad advice, like the bias of self-interest, right? So just being tuned to those things, knowing like, and I talk about this because when we serve, like, so I advise some high level, sort of even celebrity brands around real estate. And so I've been fortunate enough to do that over the years, and knowing like, I'll just pick on somebody, not a sports agent or a professional athlete or somebody really, really famous, that when they walk in the room, people are either asking them for the autograph or they're just so influential that it's just like everybody sort of like is saying yes to this person, right? So they make bad decisions because there's all these people that have an agenda for their decisions. So like in a professional athlete, you have a sports agent, right? They want you to do this and this, because guess what? They get a percentage of the contract. Or it could even be a spouse. They want you to come home, right? It could be, the coach. There's a lot of things that impact somebody's ability to make true, thoughtful decisions. And when you're in a room, you're surrounded by the same things where everybody around you has an agenda. And so we know that there's some things happening in multifamily right now where, you may be successful because you're on this call with us. I know you are. But there's employees out there that, maybe don't give you the information you need because they have a single flow of income. So you have to be able to read that room. That's a room that you could be in, right? Are they giving me the real information? Or are they saying that because, I'm the boss, right? And so you have to be able to read beyond those things. That goes back to this first principle thinking, testing your assumptions. And so it plays out in a lot of different ways, right? So I think about your life and business and the thing you want to create, and then think about where you get your information in your, we'll call it a room, the people around you, and who has bias of self-interest, and really tune into those things, because we get into the habits of progress, and sometimes it's not really progress. It's just going down the same thing that feels safe. So that was all over the place, but I hope it was helpful.
That's great. Okay, one more. I've got a question. How do I get more owners willing to award me with listing their properties to sell?
Yeah. So like brokerage, right? Same thing. So
Right.
Again, going back to my comment about even capital, it's like, okay, I'm a real estate broker and I'm going to take on a new, by the way, guess what everybody else is doing as a real estate broker? Can I get a meeting? They're sending you the letters, right? We get them. Can we buy your property? Can we, we're the best. And they give you all the same obvious stuff, right? So I think goes back to the roadmap, right? If they, discover an opportunity either by lead or conversation or anything else, they're going to look into what's in it for them, the credibility that you have to get them the best price that they want or the fastest close, all of those things. I would deal with all the emotional things that go into the deal. Most people deal with the logical things, the price, all that stuff. And the reality is that owner is not going to tell you, what was promised before them in the same way that didn't turn out well. Or I was told I can get X, and then turns out I didn't get X. I got retraded, and it was all these complications, and it made them look bad. Like get into the hearts and minds of people. But if I'm a broker today, I'd start a podcast and start interviewing those owners. And don't look at the podcast as a platform, but look at the podcast to understand owners better. Why'd you buy this? What was, all that kind of stuff. It may be, maybe a strategy, but I think the roadmap, again, people are going to, just like getting the offer accepted, they're going to look at, who are they? What group are they with? Do they have the ability to close? Do they, to even get to the conversion meeting? It's like, you can manufacture trust online. So if somebody were to hear me talk, they would kind of get an idea what the meeting's going to be like because they know the sound of my voice. They've seen how I interact, all that kind of stuff. So do all those things in public ways and stay persistent and, just follow the roadmap, think about the owner's needs.
Okay, I've got one more question. How do I find the right digital platform that helps me get clients and partners?
Great question. When I think of platform, I think about tools, but then there's also like you have LinkedIn, you have channels, things like that. I would invite you as a softball question to check out what we used to do. Is we had Salesforce and HubSpot, and we had, landing page software, we had form software, we had surveys, we had, just leads, all these things in order to interact in a modern way. And it was costing a lot of money. And so we went out to the best marketers in the world, software developers in the world, and put together an all-in-one. And that's what we use. That's how you got here. There's a landing page, there's a form, and you fill out the form and it sends you an email, and it gets you not just to the meeting, but it reminds you about the meeting, and then it's all automated. And basically you're taking out the friction for people to discover you, learn about you, get educated, and then, convert and then track where all that stuff's coming from. But there's a way. If you go to mclients, there's a button on there. It says mclients.com. You can click on our software. That's the platform I would recommend because we built it, for us, our own use, and now we're helping others use it as well. But again, you could have that, and if you don't get the roadmap stuff in, we're back to the same stuff again. So I think the platform is important, but the roadmap has to go with it. Now, I will say, nothing should replace your internal operations. If you've got Salesforce, or you've got project management tools, or, software that does deal analysis and all those things. I think people are looking too much on an all-in-one for that. So there's like internal, what I need to do, project management and communicate with my teams. And then there's like the go-to-market, the marketing stuff. I think that needs to go out in front of it. And then like for us, we just fire leads and those things inside those other platforms. So, yeah, it's never the tool, but the tools give you that advantage today to reach people.
Cool. How do I find investors and more multifamily deals at a fast rate?
Well, the only reason why the question's asked with the fast rate is because they're not doing the roadmap. And if 18 months ago, the roadmap's in place, there would be an abundance of inbound opportunities, especially for investors. It's the deals that are hard to find right now, right? So I would say everyone else is doing the education around the importance of being a multifamily investor today. So a lot of people are doing your own education piece, but I think it comes back to, you know, we need to grow revenue now is because we haven't made it these marketing things as a priority before. And great marketing means less sales. So that accelerates the speed. It feels like sometimes it needs to be faster because someone enters your conversation, you're doing the trust and the credibility and the marketing and all that stuff in a conversation, and that starts your sort of lead timeline. What you're going to find is you're going to shorten your, sales pipeline, I guess, if you want to call it that. If they're going to be doing all this discovery when you don't even know they're watching or listening, and then when they're ready, they're just going to call you and reach out to you, and it's going to feel faster because you did all this roadmap stuff. And we are coming up well past our time. I want to make sure I value everybody's time. Been so great to hang out with you guys. Always a pleasure. Great questions. Thank you, Jim, for pulling all those together. I know some of them we get the day of, and some we've got, a lot of questions to get through over the course of our work together. But I do appreciate you guys spending the time and asking the questions live. It's useful. And let us know what we can do to provide some value to you. But I'd love to keep the conversation going. There's ways that you can follow us. We're on social media on LinkedIn. We talked about Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff. We have the Facebook group too, called Scaling Multifamily Grants, where you can collaborate and connect with each other that have been on this call. I probably should have said that at the top of the show. But just go to Facebook and search for Scaling Multifamily Brands. We'll do some behind the scenes training and some really cool stuff just in that group. And if you want to learn more about what we can do to help you, just go on over to mclients.com. Let us know. Book a call with us. You get on a call with Jim and see what we can do together to help you accelerate trust in multifamily. Until then, we'll see you guys on the next show.